This video introduces a kind of a difficult concept. It's your projection of a curved line in an auxiliary view. Now, this first lesson in that is actually with a standard shape, okay? But I have to explain the geometry of this before the projection will make sense. What you see in front of you here is a cylinder, okay? And you can actually say it was cut by three planes. If I switch to the front view, I can show you a little easier. There was a plane that cut it perpendicular to the longitudinal axis here, perpendicular to the longitudinal axis here, and one that cut the cylinder at an angle. Now the resulting shapes are standard geometric shapes. If I switch to the left side view, you can see that the resulting shape is a circle. Okay. Now a cylinder cut at an angle, any angle other than straight up and down or straight across, will result in an ellipse. Okay. The last and final option is if you cut a cylinder in this direction. All right, the resulting shape would be a rectangle. All right. Now, and also on the right side view, the straight up and down cut created this circular pattern here. It's not a complete circle, but the same geometric principle applies. Now if I switch over to the auxiliary view and I look at this plane perpendicularly, like our final projection will be, you can see there's the ellipse. Okay, it's a partial ellipse because the plane didn't cut completely from top to bottom on the cylinder, but it cut most of the way through. Okay. Now when I look at it from this angle, the bottom part actually forms an ellipse. Okay. And also the end point. Okay, you can see that the end of the cylinder created an ellipse as well. Half of this ellipse is visible. The other half will be a hidden line. Okay. Now keep all that in mind as we work through the development, the projection of the auxiliary view, and it'll help you understand what we're doing. Okay. And I'm going to switch back over to AutoCAD and show you about the numbering scheme on this kind of object. Now, when we've done numbering on objects before, we had intersection points that we worked with. Okay, these were real points that you could actually touch. All right. Now you can't really do that with a cylinder. Okay, the cylinder here actually has. You see, I have quite a few numbers on it, but what I've used are the cylinder's quadrant points, and the quadrants are basically the 0, 90, 180, 270, and 360 degree marks on the edges of the cylinder. Okay. Now the same numbering method applies. The 5, 7, 3, and 9 are visible points. Okay. In other words, those are the quadrant points that relate to the front of the object. Okay. Again, they're not real points, but to help us do the development, that's what we're going to use. And also the 8, 6, 10, and 4, those are directly behind the corresponding points that I just mentioned. Okay. The only two real points on this object are points 1 and point 2, okay, where this line goes across and intersects the outside of the object. So we'll just let me point out one more time though that this plane, okay, now you know it's going to be an ellipse in your auxiliary view, is formed by this. It looks like a circle, I should say. It looks like a circle in the right side view. Okay, and this portion of the circle relates to this part of the object. Okay, so let's just jump into the development, and probably a lot of what I said a minute ago will make more sense as we get going on the object. Now I'm just going to work on one plane at a time. I don't want to get too many lines going at the same time, and I want to be very particular that I don't make any mistakes. Alright, so I'm just going to draw L and then PER for perpendicular, and just draw a line out in space. Now I'm going to switch that over to my construction layer, and I'm going to make my construction layer current because that's what I'm going to be working in for a bit. Now I'm going to move that line to one of my points of interest. I'm going to copy this down. Alright. Now, I found this is a little easier. It may not be necessary, but I'm just going to draw a solid line over my center line that I drew. And this made me think of something. When you're drawing these objects out of the text, please make sure that you draw it correctly and you put your center lines in the right place, because you're going to be using them. Okay, they're not just there as a formality. Okay. Okay. So now the reason I did that is because the ellipse that will be created in the auxiliary view has the same center point as the circle does in this view. Okay, so this point actually projects over, and then where this intersection point is going to be my center point of my ellipse in my projected view. Okay, so I'm going to put a line there as well. Now I'm going to define the back of the object as my reference plane, and I'm going to draw some lines straight up. From my points of interest on the right side view. I'm going to just clean it up a little bit. And make sure that you snap, or you have to go back and find out what happened later on. Okay. So I'm just going to do my offsets now. Okay, I just typed ellipse into the command line. Now, an ellipse has a minor axis and a major axis. The minor axis is the short axis, the major axis is the long. I'm going to define my minor axis first, okay, because I know both endpoints of my minor axis, and all I have to know is one endpoint on my major axis, okay, and then AutoCAD will do the rest. So the endpoints of my minor axis for my ellipse are correlate to the endpoints or the quadrants of the circle in this view. Okay, so that point will be that point and that point, and that's the endpoints of my minor axis. Okay, the endpoint of my major axis is right here. Okay, which also corresponds to the center line of the or the center mark of the circle. All right, now I need to switch that over to the visible layer. Okay, now if I've done this right, in this particular example, the distance between this line and this line tells me how long this line is. Okay, so the ellipse should pass through these intersection points. Okay, and you can tell that doesn't look quite right, but if I hit regen or RE and then enter, AutoCAD regenerates the ellipse for me, and you can see that it does pass through that intersection point. And let's check this one out, make sure that's right, and that is correct. Alright, so I'm going to draw a line from those intersection points across, and again I have to switch that to the visible layer. I've got to switch and make the visible layer my current layer, so I don't have to keep doing that. Alright, now I'm going to trim off the part of the ellipse that I don't need. Alright, now this line should be the same length as that line, so let's check it out. I'll go to right click and go to properties. My length is 81.1538, and the length of this line is 81.1538. Okay, now I'm going to switch back over to the 3D view, and you can tell that the ellipse here and the ellipse here, that'll be in the auxiliary view, share this common line. Okay, so in other words, when I go to my view in AutoCAD, when I create my next ellipse, the ellipse should pass through that same intersection point. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. One thing I want to mention here, this is again a partial circle. All right. Now, to be able to make my ellipse, I'm going to have to manufacture a center point for my ellipse. Okay, and this might get a little bit confusing. Just bear with me a minute. I'm going to draw a polyline over the front edge of the cylinder here. Okay, and I'm going to switch back to my construction layer, and I need to go ahead and make that my current layer again. Now I'm going to use fillet, which is F, and then R for radius, and I want my radius to be 0. Now I'm going to join the line that I made for my center line and the line I just drew. Okay, those are going to be my two lines, and it's going to form that sharp corner. Now I'm just going to copy one of the construction lines I made earlier and just snap it right there on the end point there, on that corner, and then extend that to the front face. Okay, now I can get rid of that whole bit there. Now what this is where my center point of my next ellipse is going to be located. Okay, and that's going to be actually my major axis on this ellipse. Okay, you don't really have to know which one's your major and which one's your minor as far as doing your projections in AutoCAD, but geometrically that's what we're dealing with. Okay, so I know that point, and my now I also need to know at least one point on the other axis. Okay, so I'm going to copy down one of these lines to the bottom of where my ellipse will be. I'm going to use the fillet command again, F, enter, R, enter, and then another 0 radius. Okay, and I'm going to join that to my reference plane in the back. Alright, now I'm going to extend the lines I've been working with. Alright, and keep my grid going. Alright, so now I've basically located 3 points I need for my ellipse. So I'm going to switch over to my visible layer, type ellipse in the command line, and this is the line where my along my center point, or the major axis of my ellipse, excuse me. Okay, it'll be there and there, and this is the line along my minor axis. Okay, now if I've done that right, I mentioned earlier that the ellipse should pass through those same intersection points, which that actually looks a little off. Not sure why. Probably something not snapped correctly. It looks fine on that end. Let's just erase it, and we'll try again. Okay, now it looks right. Yeah. Alright, so now that I've done that, I can trim off the part that I don't need. Alright? And this is what I was talking about earlier about making sure your snaps are in the correct spots. And for some reason, doing these curved line projections, it seems to be somewhat worse. Okay, so that looks good now. And what I'm going to do, this video is actually getting pretty long, so I'm going to just switch it off. We'll end up having 2 videos here, and you can pick this up in video 2.